Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 24 of the 40k Badcast. I am Dan Boyd, and I'm joined, as always, by my friend, my companion, Cracklins McButterscotch.
That just rolls right off the tongue. I think I'm going to legally change my name to Cracklins McButterscotch. Oh, wait, if my name was Cracklins McButterscotch, I'd probably be registered as a sex offender automatically.
Why? Cracklins are like crispy skins, parts.
Fried pork.
Or you can have chicken cracklins, too.
Fair.
And butterscotch is delicious.
Would you let your kid hang out with a grown man named McButterscotch?
If he was a clown, maybe.
No!
Why not? What's wrong with clowns?
All clowns are criminals.
No, they're not. They're entertainers.
Prove me wrong. They're not entertaining. They're terrifying.
They're not terrifying. They're just fucking people trying to have fun at a birthday party.
Yeah, and they stuff kids in the trunks of their cars and drive them into the ravine.
No, they don't.
Well,
you
no,
are
you know what
you are being brainwashed by the mainstream media is what you're being.
I'm sorry if I'm clownist.
You're an anti-clownist. I won't have that shit. We don't like Harlequins?
No, I am not down to clown.
Oh, God. All right, well, as you guys can tell, this is a Warhammer 40,000 podcast, and we're going to talk about Warhammer 40,000. I'm kind of upset about how you don't like clowns. What the fuck is wrong with clowns? You know, let's just, we'll table this for later.
Let's table this for now.
We'll talk about this after the show. Let's get into the aspects before I fucking quit this stupid show in protest. I've been working on a couple of things, Campbell.
Okay. What have you been working? What have you been working on?
A big surprise, my Raven Guard still. I finished my Primaris Ancient, which I'm extremely proud of. I had never done freehand writing on scroll work before, and I sent you a picture of it, and I can post it in the show.
Yeah, you did.
And it's awesome.
Yeah, it looks lovely.
I wrote Nevermore in the scroll work for the Primaris Ancient, and it looks fantastic. It was way easier than I thought it would be. And I'm just so happy with how that model came out. And that's the first time I've ever done a standard bearer before.
Standard bearers are really fun, like centerpiece models that don't actually see the tabletop that much. I think with the newer rules for ancients, where they like bring dead guys back essentially for them around a shooting, they'll be a little more prevalent as opposed to just being like +1 morale for the guys around them in a game where morale doesn't matter. So I'm looking forward to actually seeing that in the tabletop. And yeah, the scroll work you did in him looks fucking choice, and that whole banner looks awesome.
Like just a nice splash of color too.
Yeah.
One of the things that I'm really enjoying as I continue to paint my Raven Guard is that the characters all have a lot more color than the rank and file dudes. So there's a ton of white and red on my captain, and this banner has got a lot of red and white and a little bit of green on it. So it's a nice sort of like, you're not just like by the models themselves, but by the color scheme, the characters are picked out. And so it looks really cool on the tabletop.
Yeah. How'd you go about doing the text on it? Like, how did you like work from the center outwards?
Well, yeah,
or
you actually gave me advice because I had emailed you and been like, hey, I've never done this before. Do you have any advice? Because I've seen some of your models with your scroll work writing on it. And you're like, yeah, start from the center outward and mark off where the letters are going to be with the spacing. And so I did exactly that. And I wrote the word nevermore, which is a 9-letter word. And I liked that it was a odd number word, so I could start directly in the middle with my first letter, and then I just would pick letters on each side and I spaced it out using tiny, tiny dots of the bone color, the Ushabti bone, to let me know how wide my letters had to be. And I did it in the first try. I didn't do any practice or anything. I was just like, let's dive into it and see what happens. And thankfully, last year at Adepticon, in the VIG bag, I was given a very tiny brush. One of the army painter brushes. You ever use army painter brushes?
Yeah. I think might have that same brush. Yeah, I have that same brush right here.
Yeah, it's really good.
Yeah,
for super, super tiny detail work. And I just used that, and I was very careful and went very slowly with very watered down Rhinoxide, that dark brown, and just wrote it and just did it in one. It worked great. It looks great. I'm super happy with it.
Yeah, I'm happy for you. And that is the important thing, is to use if it's on like a scroll color, like a parchment color, to go with a really dark brown and not a pure black, because it will look a little softer and a little more natural if you do it that way.
I was looking online, and a lot of people were talking about using those Sharpies. The
fine point Sharpie.
The super fine point Sharpie, black Sharpies. And it was just kind of jarring using black.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe if I could find like a super fine point brown Sharpie,
Yeah.
that would be different. But the super fine point black Sharpie was just a little, kind of takes it out, makes it not look realistic, which is a dumb thing to say, but it's how I feel about it.
Also, it
Also,
looks unnatural. That works for it. Yeah.
here you go. Also, I've been working on my Hellblasters, the Primaris Hellblasters,
Mm-hmm.
which did the glowing plasma coil effect.
Speaking of color, yeah.
On the guns, and man, that took a while because I was trying to hit every line on the plasma coil.
There's a lot of lines.
There's a lot of line there, but the effect going from a dark blue to white on the corners, just right on the edges, is really, really cool.
Neat. I'm looking forward to seeing pictures of those guys because I don't think I have.
No, I haven't finished them yet. I'm struggling through edge highlighting at the moment.
Story of my life.
Man, I was like last night. I started painting super late at like 11:30 because I was hungover, honestly, all day, and so I was like painting at 11:30. And that late, I'm painting very slowly because I'm tired.
Yeah.
And it took me 2 hours to do one guy with edge highlighting.
My problem has been I've been edge highlighting like early in the morning after drinking like 2 cups of coffee, and it's just like this vibrating line along the side of every model, and I have to go back later and clean every highlight up.
That's awesome.
This could be avoided.
What have you been working on?
I have been painting up a fucking storm. So I finished a bunch of stuff for Age of Sigmar. I finished 5 Pistoliers, and I finished 20 Militia for my Empire. And just a note in the Militia, I was painting them, and I'm like, these faces look familiar because they're the old Free Company Militia models that were in like Mordheim. And I'm like, oh, I know I recognize these faces because these are just resculpted Catachan heads.
Are you serious?
Almost every head in that kit is from like the god-awful Catachan Infantry Squad kit. They just gave them different hats.
Oh my God, that's hilarious.
So there's like a dude, I was painting a guy and I'm like, okay, I'm painting around his beard, and I notice his lip is like in that weird, like Stallone sort of face.
Yeah,
I'm like,
that snarl, that sneer.
Yeah. Yeah, it's straight up like 2/3 of the heads are straight up Catachan heads, and then there's one that looks like Jerry Garcia.
Oh my God, that's so awesome.
It's not a great kid. It's from like late 90s, but that was kind of fun, like as a fun little note. But yeah, so I painted those 20 dudes. The Apothecary that's been my painting desk for 2.5 months, I finally finished that fucker.
Very nice.
I'm never going to use him. Like, I don't think I'm ever going to use that guy, but he came out looking pretty good. It was fun to do just a different color scheme, but I just never got around to doing that. I painted up a teleport homer for my Terminators because they actually have a use now.
Nice, cool.
Yeah, because like if you deploy the teleport homer somewhere on the table, and your Terminators can jump back to that point at any point in the game.
Yeah, no, I've played against a guy who did that. Who his Terminators came in and like murdered a bunch of guardsmen, and then the next turn they were like, "Oh, we got to get the fuck out of Dodge," and teleported back, so I couldn't blast him with a bunch of plasmas and shit.
Yeah, and it's like that just seems like a neat little trick, and it costs 0 points. So why not do it? And why not paint the little space dildo?
Fuck not, yeah.
Yeah. I also built like Chaplain Grimaldus, his Cenobite Servitors, a bunch of Sword Brethren. I primed the Battle from a Crag Lander, the crashed lander I've had just sitting around forever. I built the Emperor's Champion, like the old 2000 where he's holding the sword in both hands. I built a bunch of Vespid for a commission. And yesterday, in just start of the day to end of the day, I just painted High Marshal Helbrecht. And I finished him, and he looks fucking dope. And I can't wait to use him on the tabletop. He's outside right now with the varnish drying. So
getting high with the High Marshal.
420 Blaze Heretics every day. Like the comment I say last night where the skull on his back is just his giant bong.
No, he's getting all fucked up on killing Xenos.
I've been doing all that, and I got the Gang War rulebook from Necromunda. I read that.
Yeah, that's really cool, isn't it?
Yeah, that was cool. I liked that a lot. I still haven't read the main rulebook all the way through, but I at least know how the optional rules work now.
Yeah.
I got the new General's Handbook for Age of Sigmar, and I bought a Steam tank for that too. So
Damn,
yeah,
you've been last couple of weeks, you've been hobbying like a madman.
Dude, I just been, man, I think after like that week around Christmas where I just couldn't do any hobby stuff, I'm just making up for lost time.
Hobby like a rock star. Hobby like a rock star. That's the worst thing I've ever said.
That is the worst thing you've ever said. Edit that out. Feel some shame, goddammit.
Nah, fuck
I don't
you.
think a single rock star actually. No, actually, that's not true. A rock star does play Warhammer. Brian May from Queen. There's like pictures of him. Like there's pictures of him in the Games Workshop offices in like 1992.
I know for a fact that Ansel Elgort of Baby Driver at least used to play Warhammer.
That's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Huh. Fun.
We know one of these days we'll do a fucking celebrity showdown on 40k Badcast and see which of our favorite celebrities are playing 40k. But if I was a celebrity, man, I'd hide the shit out of playing 40k. I wouldn't let anybody know.
I'd be like, okay, it's one thing if people find out about my cocaine addiction, but man, they can't know about this.
They can't. Have you played any games since last we talked?
Yes, the year 40k teen is off to a good start. Making it happen.
Is it 40k teen or is it 2040k teen?
2040k teen. 2040k teen. I played in a tournament at Alpha Omega Hobby, the game store in Quincy here. I brought my Black Templars, and it was cool. It was a gentleman's tournament, so it was like not super big on winning necessarily. It was on best sportsmanship and best appearance. And it was 1,000 point games with like 2 hours for each game, so it's a little bit chill. And yeah, I got 3 games in. My army was basically a big Crusader squad, a Lander Crusader, some Terminators deep striking, and a Terminator captain who I upgrade to a chapter master deep striking with everything else.
Fuck yeah.
Yeah, which by the way, I had not done that. Spent the 3 command points to turn him into a chapter master before. That's a good fucking ability.
Yeah, when everybody around him can fucking reroll hits and he fucks everything up, it's fantastic.
Yeah, because I was, in some tactical forum somewhere, and they're like, yeah, so you might not get 3 command rerolls, but you're gonna reroll a lot more dice to the chapter master. And I was like, yeah, that's right. So basically, I'd roll up with the Lander Crusader. Yeah, I'd roll up with the Crusader, drop the Terminators and the captain next to it, and just unload into whatever got in my way.
That's got to be fucking scary because that will help out that Land Raider.
Yeah,
oh my God.
A Lander Crusader in rapid fire range, rerolling everything. Forget it. Whatever's in front of it is gonna die.
Imagine doing that with a fucking repulsor, like with the bajillion frag cannon or frag storm shots and laser weapons and all that shit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it worked really well. In my first game, I played against this guy Andre and his Primaris Salamanders. And he had a Redemptor Dreadnought, and I focused that thing down with a Land Raider Crusader.
Oh, shit. They're actually not that hard to kill, the Redemptors.
It's still a big, tough robot, but yeah.
13 wounds, but that toughness 7 means bolters wounded on 5s.
Yeah. And I was very fortunate because he had his army was all congested around the Redemptor. So it was Redemptor, a bunch of Hellblasters, and like a captain and an apothecary, and I think maybe one other character in there too. And I'm trying to scrape together just enough wounds to kill that Redemptor because his Hellblasters, I noticed they're chewing me up because I've learned very quickly that Hellblasters are fucking scary. And I blow up the Dreadnought, it dies, he rolls, and he rolls a 6 and it explodes.
Oh no.
And he already burned his command point reroll on an armor save earlier that turn, and it explodes and it clears out.
I think it does D6 wounds when it
does do D6 within 6 inches. It kills like my fucking neophytes that are next to there in my Crusader squad. Yeah, who are there just for soaking up mortal wounds, and it just guts everything around it. And I'm able to just kind of surround what he's got left in the middle. My sword brother from my Crusader squad kills his apothecary with a crack grenade.
Oh no!
Which I liked that a lot.
Here you go, catch.
And after I killed the Redemptor and the Hellblasters, he had nothing that could really touch either my Terminator or my Land Raiders because he had a couple intercession squads on the outsides. And we just called it at turn 5. But he was a super nice guy. He was really fun. We got lunch afterwards. And he had some, it was cool kind of like paler green salamanders. And that was cool.
Did you make a new friend?
I did make a new friend.
Awesome.
Yeah. Game 2 was against this guy, Will, and his Dark Eldar. And this is a game that was lost before I even rolled a die, unfortunately.
Oh, no.
Well, his army was just Raiders, Ravagers, and Venoms with Dark Lances. If it could have a Dark Lance, it had 2. And he had a Razorwing Jetfire in there too. And
at 1,000, that sounds like 1,000 points is for a Razorwing and a bunch of transports. Couldn't have been that much in the list.
He had like 8 vehicles
at 1,000 points.
It was something like that. It was 7 or 8 vehicles, but his squads were all like 5-man squads that were just in there.
Okay.
And they'd have like a blaster, and that'd be about it. Like I only saw like 5 infantry models the entire game because they were all in these vehicles. But the thing is, everything outranged me, everything outmaneuvered me, and on the table it was all like vertical Necromunda terrain. So even if when my Lander inevitably got blown up, it somehow lasted until turn 2. My guys couldn't reach the vehicles because they were too high up. Between the matchup and the terrain, it was just automatically lost for me. which is a shame because he was a really nice guy. I just wish I could have played a better game against him, but it was a bad matchup.
It sucks, man. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Did you get salty?
I got salty.
Oh yeah, nice.
Yeah, I got some sodium in there because I was like, oh, this is too competitive a list.
This is stupid, and I don't like it.
And I was bitching about that, and I bitched about that on like something awful or something like that, and the guy was like, yeah, that's all Dark Eldar can do. Like,
yeah,
I'm sorry,
they're
but
total glass cannons.
Yeah, the problem is I have no hammers to.
Well, at 1,000 points, you might be a little hamstrung because Marines at 1,000 points you're not playing with a full deck, especially if you have a Land Raider in there.
Yeah. Well, Land Raider is like, oh, everything's gonna kill that. I was fortunate to last the thing up till turn 2 because I popped smoke on it, so he was missing a lot of shots, but it was not good. Like in a game of rock paper scissors, I brought paper and he brought a paper shredder.
Did you rehearse that line?
I definitely thought of that line before. I think I thought of that line like immediately afterwards. I'm like, yeah, I can at least be almost witty in my awful defeat here.
Oh,
but
God,
again,
you're so lame.
He was a nice dude, and it was kind of cool. His army was like mostly 3rd edition Dark Eldar with some transitioning stuff.
Was it well painted?
It was painted. Here's the thing: a lot of the armies there weren't, and his was painted. And there was at least like some highlights, some base coats. So like it was underway.
Okay.
It just didn't look like it was finished.
Okay.
But now for an army that is well painted, and I don't mean to throw shade at Will for that. Like he was a nice dude. The army I played after that just looked really good.
I'm gonna throw shade at Will.
Okay.
Hey Will, you got 3rd edition models. Have you had them since 3rd edition? That sounds like a lot of fucking time to get painting. Fuckface. Get your shit together. Hour a night. No excuses. Please continue.
All right. Game 3 was against another guy named Andre.
Double Andres.
Yeah, double Andres.
Double entendres.
What does it mean? All right, so Andre the Second had a Crimson Fist army, and like his list was presented on like it looked like illuminated manuscript, and he had like hand done it all with pen and ink and all that, and it looked really nice. And his army was it was mostly like Black Reach models. So they weren't the prettiest models themselves, but the paint jobs he did in them were really nice. And like all the Terminators, each one had individual livery on his little tilting plate.
Oh wow!
So they all had a different heraldry, and it was all like variations of checks and quartering and stuff like that. But they looked really nice. Unfortunately, that was his 3rd game on that table that day, and his 3rd defeat that day.
Oh God!
However, I did not table him. He had 2 models left at the end. But he was a fun opponent. He was like just a really swell guy. And I would gladly play him again. I just wish it just felt like Black Templars versus Crimson Fist. It's like Dad wouldn't want us to fight.
What's a Crimson Fist shtick? What do they do? Are they like, what do you call it? Imperial Fists? Like they're good at shooting?
They're basically Imperial Fists, but they get bonuses against orcs.
Okay.
I think like a little more stubborn and bonuses against orcs. That's traditionally what it's been. I used to play them in 5th edition. I haven't really played them since. I still have a bunch of them in a closet.
I mean, thinking about it, like Imperial Fists and Imperial Fist successors spend a lot of time fighting orcs.
There's a lot of orcs to fight for what it's worth.
Yeah, but like the whole Beast Arises arc, there's a lot of Imperial Fists involved in that. Black Templars were big time in Armageddon. Mm-hmm. And of course, the Crimson Fists Rinnsworld got smacked around by orcs, and they had to fight orcs a bunch.
Yeah. Speaking of Rinnsworld and Hell's Reach are both very enjoyable books. Anyway, as for the tournament, I clearly did not win it because I got tabled in round 2. But it was still fun to play against three cool guys, 3 cool opponents. Everyone playing there seemed to be pretty much on the same page. I wish it was a little more hobby oriented, like most of the armies were not painted. And if I'd like to kind of run my own event. I would like to run a tourney that's just a little more akin to what I'd like to see. Were there awards at this tournament? Yeah, there was best painted and best sportsman, but they just kind of were handed out kind of willy-nilly. There wasn't. So the way I like tournaments to be, I like it to be a little bit more democratized, because like I like a tournament where you go like you vote for your favorite army and you vote for your favorite player for best sports and best painted army. Like that's the way I like to do it, as opposed to just one guy going, yeah, this one, yeah, that one. I like putting the power in the hands of the people, Okay, yeah. So if I were to run an event, which I'm thinking I might try to, I can tell they'd be cool with me running an event there because they've got enough shit on their plate since they're running a big ass hobby store. But yeah, I think if I were to run an event, which I'm thinking about doing, I would try to do something along those lines. Cool beans. Yeah, and I actually I talked to Adon about that a little bit from the Independent Characters, and he sent me a ton of information on running events, which I have not even skimmed the surface
I'm
of.
sure that dude like runs events at what sounds like, at least from their podcast, like 2 different stores in the
No, he runs events like it's his job.
I guess not San Jose, but around the Bay Area.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, so there's my games. I also started like a big ass Google Doc where I go over like what went well, what went wrong, so I can actually try to learn from what I do wrong as opposed to just kind of forgetting it.
Games Workshop sells a book for that.
They do, but I'd rather do that on my phone and not spend $30 on it.
I feel you.
But yeah, so anyway, how about you? You get any games in?
I got one game in. However, it was a very large game. And in fact, on my side of the table, was part of at least 21,000 points per side. I played in the annual Winter Apocalypse that the Philadelphia area gaming enthusiasts throw at Red Cap's Corner in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. We talked about this early in our show history when I think amongst our first 3 or 4 episodes.
I'd say it was a year ago.
We did the Philly Apocalypse, and I went back to Philly and did it again. And this time, Campbell, I was a little more effective in 8th edition than I was in 7th. It was a really good game run by Joe Capena of Nova Open fame, where he runs the narrative there. He did, pretty much the same thing with the Apocalypse game. Similar setup, but instead of all of the primary objectives being in our, like good guys deployment zone, because we were winning the campaign. It wasn't favoritism. We were just winning the campaign. So we got priority there. The objectives were scattered and they were evenly in both deployment zones. And, we'll start at the end and go back, but we won, the good guys, the forces of order against the forces of disorder or whatever. Though there's only one chaos player this time. It was Colin, but I was across the table from him. As I should say, not like across the table from him, but like on the other side of this huge 20-foot table.
Gotcha.
We won. They conceded on turn 5 actually because we had numerically eliminated them from potentially winning, so we didn't play turn 6, which was fine because it was getting late and I had been playing Warhammer literally all day. But it went well. I had 4,000 points of guard on the table, which is a lot.
It's a lot of tanks.
And so I was at the very far left part of the table, like all the way, and I was the only one at my table area. And opposing me were 2 guys, Tan and Rob, and they had between them 6,000 points of guard and Tau, 3,500 points guard, 2,500 points Tau, and I repelled all of it.
Jesus.
They had a 2,000 point advantage on me, and I stopped them from doing anything. What'd
you do?
Well, we had the first turn, so I blew up his shadow sword with my shadow sword, and then there was still a bunch of stuff. He had a lot of Tan, the guard player. He had a lot of executioners tanks, which for the most part just bounce off Russ's.
Yeah,
he was supercharging them or whatever, but it takes a lot of shots to bring down a Russ, even from supercharged plasma. Because
I was hoping that all explode.
He also had a lot of points concentrated in tank commanders, which I had my points spread out with a lot of artillery and a lot of guardsmen hugging objectives and a couple of super heavies, and I don't know. A lot of his stuff was just bouncing off mine, and I was able to effectively take stuff out. And then when Rob would drop his crisis suits in, he dropped his fucking 3 commanders with 2 drones each and 4 fusion guns, and took 19 wounds on my Baneblade.
Only?
Yeah, right. And that's such a fucking thorn. 3 commanders, because they're all characters, and then they have these drones, which are 2 drones each, but they're all separate units. So you can only kill 2 drones at a time. Now, the answer to this, though, I should say, is a shadow sword, because you take
it's the answer to most problems.
You take your 3 heavy bolters on the shadow sword and you target 1 squad of drones each.
Yeah,
and that's just whoop, there I go. The shadow sword was just I would be like, pick up that model every turn with its main gun. It's extremely, extremely good. I just had, it was a good time. My guys performed very well. Everybody was cool. Tanner and Rob were really nice guys. I got to see a bunch of people that I hadn't seen since either Nova or the year before. Lavelle was standing next to me the whole time, and he brought his Custodes, which we'll get to in a minute. And very, very fun time, very cool thing. I drove up that morning and came back that night, so there was a lot of driving that day, but it was really cool to see. And at the end of the game, afterwards, we had cleaned up, and we were doing some awards. I won second place for Best Painted.
Oh, congrats.
Behind this fellow Mike, who had beautiful Tyranids, black and blue. Like mostly black, but they're on their armor parts, the chitin or whatever. He had like a lot of those little, those little lines a lot of Tyranid players do.
Yeah.
He had a lot of the. It was beautiful, beautiful nids. So I got a $20 gift card to the store there.
Oh.
And then there was two people got. Every time you lost a unit or killed a unit, you got a raffle ticket. And
that's
then
fun.
He at the end he drew 2 raffle tickets for another $30 gift card, and I was one of the recipients for that.
Cool.
What'd
you get?
I had $50 in store credit, so I bought a box of intercessors.
Neat,
because I need them for my army.
Yeah, you do, and that'll give you a little bit more variety aside from the Dark Imperium guys.
Right. So for Adepticon, for my 1,500 point list that I'm building towards right now, I need another group of intercessors to make it a battalion. So that was, I was like, that's an actual need. So I'm going to work on those when I get done with, I think I'm doing Inceptors after I finish these Hellblasters. So yeah, whatever. Not a big deal. But cool. Let's move on to new stuff. And for first time in a while, we can talk about a brand new faction.
Yeah.
In a game
neither of us are going to play.
Well, you and I disagree about this faction in a couple of ways. The Adeptus Custodes are out, and they have a new book. It's a new faction. They have characters. They have totally cool jet bike lancer dudes that I really like the models for. They have a new special character who's their like supreme commander, Trajan, whatever, Valorous.
It's the most 40k name.
And I have in my notes, I have a line that says "so fucking rad" and good. Because these models look amazing. The new models. I mean, the Adeptus Custodes models already looked really fucking good. But these guys now with their like executioner bolter axes and their crazy amounts of like filigree and detail on their armor, they look fan-fucking-tastic.
Oh, I will not disagree there. I think the models are also like they're really detailed, but because like the paint scheme they have for them is pretty much one color, it kind of avoids a lot of my problems with, say, the Nurgle models, where they're just festooned in all this like guts and flies and junk. And like these are all pretty much not monochrome, but the color scheme is more restrained, which makes the level of detail seem a lot more palatable to me.
Yeah, and these things will paint up real fucking quick too, because you can spray them gold. They do Retributor armor. Yeah, they do Retributor armor as a spray.
Yeah,
and you just spray them gold, and then you pick out the details, and you're golden. Campbell is what you are.
You don't say.
We're looking at on the community website. Man, these guys, their stats are fucking unreal. The shield captain coming out there, 6 wounds, 5 attacks, strength and toughness of 5, 2 up save. He probably has like a 3 up or 4 up invulnerable save. Also, he's fucking nasty as shit. The regular dudes all have 2 up armor saves with 3 wounds, a toughness 5. Now, this is the kind of army that's going to be very small on the tabletop.
Yeah, and elite armies kind of struggle right now.
They do, but I think this army is so damn elite, they're going to be okay.
Well, I feel like fighting these guys will either be, it's like it always is. If somebody's just rolling a few more ones than normal that day, like this army is going to have the Deathwing problem where they're just going to get cleaned off. But I'm with the high toughness, with the number of wounds, with the good saves and all this stuff, I feel like they might be that army that just doesn't die. And I'm curious what their real offensive abilities are going to be like, because the issue with some armies that have really hardy models, like Nurgle even, their stuff doesn't die, but it doesn't always do that much damage. So I'm curious how they'll actually be when they're on the tabletop.
These guys are mostly focused on melee.
Yes.
So
they all have big axes and big swords and big glaives.
Melee armies are already at kind of a disadvantage in 40k because you have to get there. And elite armies are also at a disadvantage because you're just, model attrition is a thing in the game.
Yeah.
So I don't know, maybe they won't be actually that good, but they're so fucking cool. And I love the background of the Adeptus Custodes. I'm really excited about this army. I'm not going to play it because I already got enough shit on my fucking table, literally at home, my hobby table. But I think is really cool, and I'm super excited about a new faction being introduced to 40k. Well, maybe not a new faction, but fleshing out a faction that really existed only on the margins. However, Campbell, I think, in the minority here.
A lot of people are not happy about these guys being the new release because you always have but where are the Plastic Sisters? Where are the Plastic Sisters? You have that sort of thing. You have where are more Xenos? Where's more attention for Xenos? I think of it this way. There's a lot of people saying, they should have come out with more Xenos, and that's kind of like how I feel about my dentist saying I should eat less candy. Like, yeah, it's probably good for me if I eat less candy, but I want more candy, and that's how I feel with more Imperials.
I don't like that. I do not like that analogy, and I'll tell you why. Because what's candy in this case is dollars, is money for the company Games Workshop. Imperial armies are the most popular.
They are.
So, and I get, like, orc players are like, where the fuck is my codex? I get that. I get if you don't, Tau players, Tau players, fuck you.
Fuck them.
But people Space Wolf players who are like, where the fuck is my codex? And all the shit, like, I get it. I understand it. But Games Workshop needs to make money. They need to sell things. So your analogy of, like, another Imperial army is unhealthy for them, I think is opposite of what is actually the truth. So that's fair. I think a better analogy, if we're talking about eating, would be you want candy, but they still keep making vegetables.
Fair. All right. Sure.
If we're going to get fucking pedantic about analogies, which everybody loves doing, especially when I do it, I think that's a better analogy.
I can't imagine any pedantry coming into this hobby. But yeah, all right. So I'll say the models are gorgeous. I think they're beautifully sculpted. Everything I've seen in them looks wonderful. I love the cloaks. I love the gold. I like the big weapons. But I think one of the reasons there's also a bit of the sodium out there is because when these guys were announced the day before on Facebook and I think maybe Warhammer Community, they had a little teaser image being like, we've waited, we're finally striking. And people are like, oh shit, this is going to be something I've personally anticipated. And of course, everyone fills in their own gap there, whether that's Xenestealer cults or Sisters of Battle or I don't know, fucking Chaos Squats, whatever. Everyone has some idea of what it's going to be. And when it was these guys, these really admittedly nice, but not exactly who I think a lot of people were clamoring for models, a lot of people got disappointed. That being said,
I see. I have a problem with this because I was reading shit like posts in something off or in other forums, like people were like, "Oh, well, I wanted it to be Exodite Eldar," and I'm just like, where the fuck have you seen Exodite Eldar rumors or anything out of GW? Yeah. What models have you seen? Like there are Games Workshop. Their whole thing now is they make rules for the models. Every model they create has rules, and stuff that doesn't have models a lot of times gets dropped.
Yeah,
like librarians or chaplains or whatever on bikes. They don't make those anymore, so they don't make the rules anymore. I know that Carl of the Independent Characters was complaining about no chaplains on bikes, or the rules not existing in the Codex, the Space Marine Codex. Well, that sucks, but people wish listing for whatever random faction, the Rude or Hrude or however you want to fucking say it, or Space Lizardmen or Space Skaven or their pet project Eldar or whatever, and then getting mad that it's not exactly that. That's stupid.
It's never gonna. Yeah, well, I think them teasing it is kind of what really made people upset because it made people fill in their own gap. Because if you spend a day or two just being like, ooh, what's it gonna be? People start wish listing. Well, if it's just at the drop of a hat, there's suddenly these cool things. People are just surprised. I think that's the danger of hype. Being said, I feel like
I have a problem with that because that's if Games Workshop comes out and says we've got a really big announcement for Warhammer 40,000, and everybody's like, oh, a big announcement. That's fun. We're doing it tomorrow. So tomorrow, tune into Community or whatever the fuck. We're making a big announcement. And people start connecting dots in their heads and start making up shit and just being like, oh, I've really always wanted to see a fucking model for Lilith Hesperax's sister, who in my homebrew Dark Eldar Cabal is like a big character. That would be really nice. And if they don't have that, I'm going to be really upset about that. Like, come the fuck on.
Yeah.
Them making hype about something and then people getting all upset that their little favorite thing that has nobody's even been talking. We get these rumors of shit that comes out way before nowadays.
Yeah.
You know, like we hear about everything before it actually gets announced. And there was a lot of people. There were a lot of people that were like, "Yeah, it's going to be Custodes. Like, stop fucking wishlisting, nerds. It's going to be Custodes." And
they even teased the Captain Trajanus.
Yeah. So, like, I mean, we knew what it was going to be. So I guess it takes years for new armies to come out.
Yeah,
for new models to come out. It's a year. What, two and a half to 3 years for models to go through production. I'm sorry, design, production, then mass production, and then rules, and then books on top of that.
Yeah.
So there's nothing like, oh, they're just gonna snap their fingers and squats are fucking back. So I don't know, man. I'm just kind of fucking tired of people being like, oh, my special little bullshit didn't get a new army book. Like, sorry, man, but no, there was no evidence to support that your special little bullshit was going to get anything.
I will say, I am happy to see Custodes come out and get fleshed out. I think it's cool to being fleshed out. Part of me is kind of like, I wish they were still in the background of the fluff, but everything from the background is coming to the foreground, and I get that's kind of the theme right now, and I'm okay with that.
Well, it's the end. It's like the Imperium's direst hour, right?
Which is when these guys would come out. It makes sense for the narrative they're crafting. But I am disappointed that they did not remake the Rogue Trader Custode model, which is just an oiled up man in a Speedo with a big helmet and a spear. Huge missed opportunity, GW. Get it together.
I can't even argue with that. You're right. You're 100% right.
Jess Goodwin on the phone.
I'll call him up. Tell him.
I have demands.
Just, goddamn it. Well, you know, you can still make that.
Oh, totally good.
Head swap and like an arm swap with some like an Eversor or something. And you're,
I'd get some of the like the Coherent Bloodbound models, like smooth over some of the scars and tattoos, and just stick on a Custode head. It'd be great.
Custodian is the singular. Head. Custodes is the
custard.
I love it when people call them custodes. I'm just like, oh, cool. You're
all fucking made up Latin that means nothing.
Okay, well, let's move on. Sorry to get a little salty, everybody, but we wanted to talk about what we think is a very interesting topic of conversation: picking a theme for an army. Like, how do you do it? So we spend a ton of time painting and playing and, you know, existing in our little sandbox of our armies, and we wanted to talk about how we picked our themes and different ways you can pick a theme to make your army. So one of the things that gets me going, and this is because I'm not a very creative human, I'm an idiot who likes to paint by numbers, is if there's an established color scheme that I like, that I'm into, then I'll usually go with that and paint around that, like I did with the Raven Guard. Yeah. I looked when I was, this was in like 2007 when I started painting Raven Guard guys. I was like, ooh, black armored Space Marines? Whoa. And they're not that popular, and I can do this and they'll look cool. That's what I did. And like we talked about this in an earlier show about like why we picked our Space Marine chapters that we liked. But really the thing that drew me to the Raven Guard initially was their color scheme.
I'm an Ultramarines fanboy because when I was a kid, my uncle got me a blister pack of a Space Marine captain, and I had no idea how to paint it. So I did a Google image search for Space Marine Force Commander, and I picked the first picture that looked okay to me, which was the Ultramarines paint scheme, because blue was my favorite color as a kid. Granted, since then, you know, the heavy metal paint schemes and the box art schemes are a great starting point for an army. Clearly, like there's a theme for you to follow that's ready-made right there, but that's not the only theme you can choose.
I use that stuff all the time, those resources that we have for helping us paint models, helping me at least make decisions on like what colors I should use for my army.
Yeah.
You know, I looked at when I did my Blood Bowl team, I looked at Bad Moons in the color scheme of, because I love the yellow and green combo for an orcs. So I was like, I want to do, you know, Bad Moon style orcs for this. And so I looked that up because I liked the color scheme.
Yeah, like fortunately there's such a breadth and depth of color schemes and armies and gangs and all kinds of stuff all across all the flavors of Warhammer that you can find you can inspire things things can be inspired by other things. So like I have orcs that are inspired by other army schemes I've had because they're looted from that scheme or whatever, which is cool.
Yeah, I've definitely seen there's definite crosstalk between your orcs and Valhallans.
Oh yeah, no kidding. But speaking of Valhallans, yeah, for one, I was obviously for them, I didn't go with the old Hammer sort of feel that you could very obviously get from getting these old models from the 90s, but instead I turned to history for my inspiration for them. Ooh. I went with an army that's very heavily themed around the World War II Soviet Red Army. So they've got the brown coats, they've got, red stars painted on some vehicles. Their vehicles have this winterized look to them because actual Soviet tanks in World War II, and not just Soviet tanks, but a lot of tanks in World War II, would have hastily applied white paint over the green paint that most of the tanks got to make it blend in with the winter environment better. That being said, a lot of history is problematic and in hindsight is probably not cool to put in your vehicles. So while I have a red star here and there, I didn't put hammers and sickles and everything. They're obviously inspired by the Soviets, but they're not going whole hog.
Yeah, well, we can segue into what I was going to bring up next, which is models. And if you like a particular model range, is a great reason to get into an army. Mm-hmm. The guys I have, the Armageddon Steel Legion, are inspired by German uniforms in World War II.
Yeah,
which is problematic to say the least. But you can get around that by just not being weird about it, I guess. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, here's the thing. If you're ever thinking, would this be too far? Chances are it's probably too far. But
if you have to justify it, don't do it, is usually a good rule.
Yeah, but if you're thinking, maybe I should make a diorama of a guardsman curb stomping an Eldar baby, you should probably check with a few online communities and see what they think.
Yeah.
But that being said, history is a very good resource for this sort of stuff. And the GW sculptors clearly draw from it a lot too. Like the Stormtrooper models, those heads, like the beret heads and the older models for Stormtroopers, are very clearly based on World War II British paratroopers.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
And, the Ultramarines and Space Marines as a whole, but especially the Ultramarines, are very heavily based on ancient Rome. Mm-hmm. So a fun resource actually you can look into these are actually the Osprey books. Osprey makes all these uniform and heraldry guides and these, little pocket-sized history books for all these various armies and factions all throughout history. So I have one for, the Langschnecks in the 1600s or so that I use for my Empire guys because they look very similar. And those are, even if you don't go one-to-one from that book, it's an interesting place to be a jumping off point.
All right, so we talked about it a little bit, but liking the models is also a great reason. I got into Steel Legion because I preferred those type of Imperial Guardsmen to any other. I'm doing all Primaris Marines for my Raven Guard because I really love the look of Primaris Marines. Like, there are great, loving the models, I think is probably my favorite reason for getting into an army or picking a theme.
Yeah, because you're going to be working on that army for a long time, so you're going to want to like those models.
Like that new Great Unclean one, oh my God. Yeah. This new Nurgle stuff, man, especially the demons, like I'm not going to do it because I don't have the fucking time, but I was watching the painting video from Warhammer TV with Duncan on painting that Great Unclean one. And oh my God, it looks like so much fun.
Yeah, it looks like it's a big flabby canvas.
So another great reason to get into a theme is the background, the fluff, or the books, or whatever. There's so many different ways that Games Workshop produces its media now that there's a ton of great stories out there. I know that I've met people who have Soul Drinker Space Marine armies because of Gav Thorpe's Soul Drinker novels. I know people who, like you like the independent characters guys talk about it all the time. Carl got into the Black Legion because of ADB's Black Legion books.
Yeah, No Fear is why I have Heresy Ultramarines, and Storm of Iron is why I had an Iron Warriors army back in the day. Like a exciting story that you can just kind of picture in your head will when I read a good book, I'm just thinking like how I can represent that in the tabletop if it really inspires me. So I found what I like is when the fluff inspires you and the models inspire you together, and you can kind of put them together to make a thematic force. So my Black Templars, I was working on my Empire guys and all these leftover knightly bits, and I'm just wondering how I can incorporate these into some conversion somewhere. And I got really inspired by the Black Templars and their narrative. And I love the book Hell's Reach, and combining the two, the models I love and the narrative I love into one army is kind of the chocolate and peanut butter slapped in the middle.
Delicious. So,
Delicious,
but there's a different, Campbell. There's another way to get into an army is if you like the rules or you like the play style.
Yeah.
Which I think is like some people love armies that want to charge across the table and cause as much carnage as possible. I'm like, oh, well, let me introduce you to orcs.
There's also my favorite, which is the theme of my army is that I win.
Yeah, no, that's a lot of people I know are getting prepared for the Las Vegas Open right now.
Mm-hmm.
And that is definitely a big theme of why they are picking their armies, because they want to win at a very competitive tournament.
And that's viable. That's not how I play, but if that's what you're into, that's what you're into.
You mentioned something in our pre-show discussion that I really liked, box art.
Oh, yeah.
They don't do it anymore because they,
unfortunately,
I guess, are more interested in showing you what the models actually look like on the boxes. And you say unfortunately, but I'm a fan of it because I personally like to know what I'm buying. But they used to do box art on the front of every box for their model. This was big in 3rd edition. I know. I think they stopped doing it after 3rd edition. But there's like the Catachan heavy weapons team was
artwork so cool.
Was the cover art was muscly dudes with bandanas manning their machine guns in the jungle.
Well, that's a lot more evocative to me than just a picture of some toys in the front. Like, all right, so 2nd edition model boxes were just the models on the front on a white a blue to white gradient, or maybe some green flock on the ground, and it was very simple. And then 3rd edition, they did a lot of painted box art. Rogue Trader had a lot of painted box art too, and that's very evocative, and it literally paints a picture of what this universe is. And as a kid, picking up a box and seeing this gorgeous artwork on the front of it that just captures my imagination in a way that a picture of some plastic toys doesn't. Now, at the back of the box, that's where the pictures of the models would actually be. And they'd usually be on a battlefield or in some sort of environment that kind of gave it some context. And now they don't really do that so much. Now it is largely just guys on a blank field, which, again, is great for showing you what the models are, but doesn't capture the imagination the same way.
So I actually, as a child, I can imagine having the painted box art would be a lot more evocative. But now as an adult, where my dreams have been crushed and everything is terrible and I'm a horrible old man, I just want to know what I'm buying.
Despite the depressing realities of Hell World 2018, I still have some imagination and hope left in me. So seeing a nice evocative picture in the front of a box does make me happy. And again, if I want to see a picture of what fucking cataphracti Terminators look like, I have the Library of Alexandria in my pocket. I can just look up whatever I need to know. I can just Google it. But I also
the
really
Alexandria Public Library, the one that's down the street from my house,
the one that came first. You're missing the mark by a couple thousand years.
All right, so one more thing on the notes here, and I'm going to need your help with this. Unrelated media. What do you mean by that?
So people draw inspiration not just from, the obvious. They aren't just inspired to do a battle or an army because of something they read in a Black Library book, but by maybe something they read or saw or played in something else. So, for instance, like if you really like, say, Game of Thrones, and you think the Lannister iconography and color scheme is really beautiful, with the lions and the red and the gold, that's a good starting point for an army. Like, I'd say don't go full on, this is Space Tyrion or whatever, but I think it's a cool jumping off point for an army, or a cool jumping off point for a project or a battle.
You know what else is red and gold? Hulkamania. What you gonna do, brother, when Hulkamania runs wild on you?
Well, here you go. Well, actually, if I get the head from the militia kit with the beard, and then I sculpt some green stuff, some sunglasses, and a cowboy hat on him, I can make Chapter Master Macho Man Randy Savage.
I want to challenge you, Campbell.
Yeah.
To make one of your characters in Age of Sigmar. Either the Hulkster, Macho Man Randy Savage, not the Ultimate Warrior, because that guy sucks.
Fuck that guy. Yeah, he sucks.
Just take a classic member of wrestling canon and make an AOS character out of it.
Well, Dan, to that I say, the cream rises to the top. Ooh, yeah. Yeah, of course I'll do Macho Man Randy Savage. I've got the head. I just need to figure out the body to use for him. Oh, shit. I actually have, there was that Coherent model that came in a White Dwarf that's like super muscly. I'm going to make Macho Man Randy Savage. I'm going to make a Macho Man Randy Savage. I don't know what I'll do with him, but I'm going to make him.
Do you remember his entrance music?
Yeah, Pomp and Circumstance.
Bum, 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 bum.
Now, if I was really inspired to make the whole palanquin he'd get carried in on.
Oh, my God. That guy. Rest in peace. God, he was such an inspiration for young Dan.
Like, you might be inspired by Macho Man Randy Savage's uniform or whatever, costume, regalia. And maybe you want to bring that to your custodes. Like, it doesn't need to be that literal. It doesn't need to be that far-fetched. But, even just watching, Aces High might make you want to do a fighter wing for your Imperial Guard. Or watching, Star Wars might make you want to do a uniform that resembles, say, like a Stormtrooper or Rebel uniform or whatever. Like, there's a lot of ways you can go without being completely literal.
Okay. Really what we want to say is if you're picking a theme for your army, do whatever the fuck you want.
Yeah, there's anywhere. Just spin around a circle and throw a rock and you'll find something that can inspire you.
Don't do Nazis.
Don't do Nazis. Don't do Confederates.
Do anything else.
Do pretty much anything else. And again, if you're thinking about doing something that you might think might be too far, just ask. Like, you can even ask us. You can reach out to us at contact@40kbadcast.com and we'll tell you your idea. Is it god-awful or cool?
If you,
we are the tastemakers of the 40k community.
Bombard us with questions about your planned armies. Dan, I want to do the Army of Northern Virginia from the Civil War. No, don't do it. Okay, well, let's move on to a little bit of what I like to call fluff divers.
Blub, blub, blub.
And we're going to talk specifically today about Tempestus Scions, or as Campbell likes to correct me, Stormtroopers.
So they were originally called Stormtroopers, and they were for a very long time, and then GW was like, we need to copyright this, so they called them Tempestus Scions, which just means descendants of the storm, which is not that dissimilar. And it is pronounced Scion, not Skyon or Psychon, as I heard one kid say, but Scion, like the car.
Okay, so you know a lot about the background and everything, and you have a bunch of Scions or Stormtroopers or whatever you want to call them. So the way we're going to structure this one is more of an interview and less of a discussion. So
all right,
I'm going to ask you some questions, and I want to start out first. We're going to talk about the background.
All right.
Because, it's a great reason to collect an army or get into miniatures or whatever, and one of my favorites. So, Campbell, who are the Tempestus Scions?
They are the best troops in the Imperial Guard. So unlike a normal guard regiment, they're not tied to a specific planet or a specific regiment. They're just attached to other regiments on temporary assignments, and they almost never fight as one unified group. So unlike, with the Valhallan 32nd or the Cadian 8th or whatever, they just kind of get seconded to units across the Imperium. But they're not just raised from a planet like a regular regiment is. They are all orphans raised by the Scala Progenium, and they are indoctrinated from youth to be loyal, fierce, relentless soldiers. In old fluff, they used to just be the orphans of Imperial soldiers or Imperial citizens, but the fluff decided to go a little more ridiculous, and now they're almost exclusively the orphans of nobles and officers.
So are they from certain planets, like regular guard regiments, or do they... Because as far as I understand, they go to the Scala Progenium, right? But
boarding school.
They
go to space boarding school.
Psycho murder boarding school. And those are kind of centrally located.
Yes. So
there's not one on every planet.
No. In the original fluff, there were just 10,000 of them, and they were drawn from everywhere to one place, which is kind of ridiculous given the size of the universe. But no, they are not specifically from one place. With the exception of the Kasrkin on Cadia, they are attached their units on a more permanent basis.
Okay, so you already have crack guard regiments like the Catechins or the Cadians or whatever else. So why do they exist? Why does the Imperium put so many resources into training and indoctrination and all their nice gear and all that shit when they already have guardsmen?
If the Imperial Guard is a sledgehammer, these guys are a scalpel. if not a scalpel, then a needle. Like they're used for covert operations. They're used for behind enemy lines operations. They're used for something where you need precision and speed. So, for instance, instead of moving around regiment after regiment of guard, the work that a regiment of guard can do can be overshadowed by the work of one squad of stormtroopers, potentially.
Wow.
They are armed they're absolutely armed to the teeth. They are armed in heavy body armor. They're armed with hotshot las guns, or hell guns, as they used to be called, which is 3 edgy 5 me and cool as hell. And they've got monitor cameras all over them. They've got grav chutes they use to deep strike in. They've got their own fleet of vehicles. They are not the best of the best because they're Space Marines, but they're the best of the rest.
Okay, so have they done anything cool then in the background? Like, are there any like specifically awesome things that the Scions or Stormtroopers have taken care of?
So the thing is, I haven't actually found a novel that's based on them. They tend to show up in background fluff as like an attached unit that shows up halfway through and usually does something cool and then just fucks off or is with the army for the rest of the book. Like, for instance, in Cadian Blood, that book has this great scene where it starts off with a squad of stormtroopers in a Valkyrie, and they storm a cathedral by rappelling down, smashing through the windows, and doing basically SEAL Team 6 stuff. Their codex is full of little battles that they won, but for what it's worth, that old codex, I don't think the fluff is that well written, unfortunately.
Okay, so they have been antagonistic in a lot of the fluff too,
yes.
From the standpoint of your main characters are like a guard regiment, and then the stormtroopers come in and they are indoctrinated hardliners, it seems to me. And a lot of times they almost seem like the personal army of an inquisitor.
Yeah, no, well, stormtrooper regiments are very often attached to inquisitors, and stormtroopers often, and mind you, I'm using the term stormtrooper and Tempestus Scion pretty much interchangeably here. They often go on to become Sisters of Battle, Inquisition agents, or Adeptus Arbites. Not the local cops, but like the space cop types. But because of their elite status, their elite equipment, and their competence, they tend to be given preferential treatment by their superiors, which means there is some friction between regular guardsmen and stormtroopers, and the regular guardsmen will often call them big toy soldiers or glory boys, often as kind of a derogatory term.
So there's a lot of depth, it seems, in the background with stormtroopers, where they're not just regular guardsmen. They are, as you said, super specialized. So let's talk about their rules and how they perform on the table. Campbell, are they any good? Is there a good reason to have them in your army?
Well, so that those years of psycho-indoctrination, that insane preferential treatment, that best of the best equipment means they have one more leadership, one more ballistic skill, one more armor save than regular guardsmen. But on the tabletop, they are actually pretty effective. They're a very small force if you want to go with a pure Stormtrooper Scion army. They basically get the regular Tempestus Scions, Tempestor Primes, who are their captains, who in the fluff are promoted on battlefield merit alone, which I think is cool because the Guard can have so much of that political shit. They have Tempestus Command Squads, which are just really special weapon squads, Torox Primes, and Commissars. They can take Valkyries too, but those are Imperial Navy, not actually Tempestus Scion. They're best used, they can be used alone. I use them as their own force in 6th and 7th edition a lot because they had some special formation rules, but they're best used alongside a Guard army as a supplementary force because while they are not as expensive as Space Marines, they're decidedly pricier than Guardsmen, and they're still a bit fragile. They're still toughness 3 models. Their vehicles are still only about as tough as a Rhino. But they have a special rule called Auxilia, which means they can be fielded alongside a regular regiment without preventing that regiment from gaining their doctrines. So if they're with Cadians or Catachans or Valhallans, they still get to keep those doctrines.
But don't they have their own doctrines?
They do. They have their own doctrine, stratagem, relic, and warlord trait. So they can be fielded as a full army. So their doctrine means if a model is shooting at a target at half range or less, so in rapid fire range, each roll of a 6 up to hit generates an extra shot. So when you have things like the Gatling cannons on the Torox Primes, you're getting just oodles of dice.
Fucking A, that's rad.
Yeah, it's super cool. And I feel like no one's really talked about that. When I looked in the rule book, when I looked in the codex and I saw that, I was like, sweet deal. I actually have a good use for these guys now.
You could take like a Vanguard or a patrol detachment
and tailor-made for it.
And your like brigade or battalion or whatever of whatever else you're taking, so they could benefit from their doctrine, right?
Yeah, you could. I used to do that. That's how I'd field them in 6th and 7th edition, is as a allied detachment to a main force of guard that are meant to hold things down. They have a stratagem, which is basically the same as the Marines get, where if an enemy unit sets up within a foot of one of your infantry units, you can just shoot that unit immediately at a -1 to hit.
Oh, fuck yeah.
Which I mean, you only have small squads, but still, they have a good amount of firepower.
Really? Don't they get 2 guys with special weapons at 5 dudes?
They do, which means 5-man deep striking squads with melta guns and plasma guns
That's
are
right.
terrifying.
They get to deep strike too, don't they?
Yeah, the entire army gets deep strike.
Fucking gosh.
Yeah, so you can field them in the Torox Primes, which are super fast, super heavily armed, reasonably durable vehicles. But you can also field those on the ground, just have everything else deep strike in.
God, I gotta get me some fucking Scions.
Yeah, you do. Their relic is the Tactical Auto Reliquary of Tiberius.
Oh, I fucking love this one.
Yeah, which is this little servo skull that shatters orders into your brain, or into the commander, and sometimes they issue contradictory orders or nonsense, but it means you get an additional order per turn unless you roll 1 with the officer.
Yeah, it's a floating servo skull that has like the brain and personality of this old Scion officer download into it, and it's got a speaker on it, and so it just shouts orders on its own.
Yeah, it's peak 40k, and the bit 4 is actually in the kit, which is cool. It's a fun, like, relics aren't usually well represented as model options, but that one's in the kit. And then they have a warlord trait, which is Faithful Servant of the Throne, which basically lets the warlord deny psychic power because he's so devout and so psycho-conditioned, which is, it's handy. It means if I'm feeling them alongside my Black Templars, that's very fluffy, but that's not much of a force multiplier like a lot of warlord traits are.
So, Campbell, are there best practices to use with this army? Like on the table?
I would liken them to Imperial Dark Eldar. They're a glass cannon. They're fast, they're hard-hitting, but they're fairly fragile. They want to be a little closer than Dark Eldar because the hotshot las guns or hell guns only have about 18 inches of range. But they've got a good armor-piercing value, and they're not high strength. So you want to get as many shots off as you can.
But they do get a lot of special weapons, so you can load them up with melta guns and plasma guns and hotshot volley guns.
Yes, which are just upgunned versions of their main guns. Don't take flamers, and I don't know why grenade launchers are even an option.
They're so bad.
They're so bad. On a guardsman for like the 3 points they cost or whatever, okay. But on stormtroopers, it's a total waste of their good BS. Flamers are also a waste of their good BS because they're hitting on 3-ups.
Yeah, I think meltas and plasmas are where they make their money.
Yeah, they actually cost more to take plasma. I think melta guns or plasma guns on BS 3-up models now.
Yeah, it's true.
Because of this. But they actually got a bit of a points drop from 6th and 7th edition, which is kind of unusual because they used to be 14 points a man, and now they're 10.
Oh, wow.
So they are, once you factor in the cost of the gun, because the hell guns cost a point each, they cost as much as a Space Marine Scout. And honestly, for their mobility, for their equipment, and for their flexibility in the tabletop, that's pretty okay. You don't want them in hand-to-hand combat. That's the same rule as you had for guard. Mm-hmm. And unlike Dark Eldar, who I liken them to, they don't have any sort of close combat heavy hitters. Like, you could always bring in Ogrins or Ally and whatever the fuck you want, but just in the Tempestus Scion keyword, they don't have anything that's very good in hand-to-hand combat.
So are Tempestus Scion squads troops or elites?
They are troops.
Holy shit.
Mm-hmm. They used to be elites.
I thought they were all elites.
Nope, they are troops, which means it's also a very easy way to fill out an FOC with some mobile troops if you want to have, say, guard armor in the backfield. They mix and match with Imperial Guard beautifully. Like, they're in their own codex. They're in the same codex now. They had a weird time in 6th edition where they got split off into their own codex, which weirdly launched before the Guard codex, and some people mistakenly bought it because they thought it was the Guard codex.
That, yeah.
And they're like, what the fuck? There's 4 units in here.
I do remember. All right, so let's talk about their models real quick. How long have their models been around?
1996 is when the first Stormtrooper models came out. They had berets, these big backpacks, and these power lines running from their hotshot las guns to the power packs.
These were the plastic models, right?
Uh-huh. There was one plastic model, which came in a box of 6, I think, which is a guy, looking kind of grumpy, holding his gun. Grumpy. And they looked like World War...
Yeah, he did look grumpy.
Yeah, and he looked like a World War II British paratrooper. They had two sergeant models, a few special weapons, and funnily enough, a heavy weapons model. They used to actually have a heavy weapons team of the guy sitting at the wheeled gun, which they don't have rules for anymore, but they're still cool things.
Yeah.
These were sculpted by the Perry brothers, who they make historicals in space. They always did. And those models still look great to this day. And fun fact, in the old second edition codex, there's that piece of artwork of the grumpy stormtrooper just kind of prowling along. Dylan has the original drawing in his basement.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I covet that piece of artwork.
Hey, Campbell.
But yeah.
What has 3 hands and is really good at sculpting miniatures?
The Perry brothers. I met one of them at Salute a few years ago, and he was very nice.
I can imagine. Those guys have been around forever, man.
Yeah. No, they had a second run of Stormtrooper models in 2000, which these were really, really goofy.
Oh, these were like the little squat round guys, right?
Yeah. They were sculpted by Mark Bedford, who did a load of the third edition Tyranid and Catachan minis, and you can really kind of tell that.
He did not like hard edges at all. He was very into like rounded sort of models.
Yeah, they don't quite look like they're sculpted out of fondant, but they do have a lot of round edges. Like they've got like big belly plates. They've got these funky gas masks. They've got these big backpacks, but weirdly, their guns aren't linked to the backpacks by power lines like the old Stormtroopers or every Stormtrooper since is. So I think he just didn't get the memo. So they have these big like vacuum cleaner ray guns for their hell guns. But the fun thing is, those models, they're covered in bits taken from other kits, really obviously.
I didn't know that.
There's the Space Marine, or there's one with a plasma pistol. It's obviously the Space Marine plasma pistol and Space Marine plasma pistol hand from the Tactical Squad kit. Like, it even has the armor segments on the wrists.
Yeah.
And the plasma gunner has that same problem. So his the hand holding the trigger is the Space Marine hand holding the trigger, but the left hand is this new sculpted hand for the plasma gun, and it's like twice the size of the other hand.
So they're just kind of lazily made.
They're lazily, hastily made, covered in like reused junk like Auspexes and grenades from the Space Marine Tactical Squad kits. They've got kind of a cool aesthetic with these, kind of cosmonaut looking suit, but they are very, very lazy. Mark Bedford didn't sculpt a whole lot of Warhammer models. Like, he was kind of in the late 90s, early 2000s, and he kind of fell off as far as I'm aware. When you compare those to the other metal Catachan minis of that era, you can really tell.
So that's not those aren't the current models though.
No.
No, they're not even the most. There's another range right before the current models.
So those guys were only around from 2000 to 2003. They were very quickly replaced by the Casterkin, who
They're
I
hard to
mentioned
find those old third edition stormtroopers.
I have 20 of them.
Oh, do you? Oh, fuck. Okay.
Yeah, I got them a while ago. They're all painted. Like, I painted them for an old guard army. I painted them for a friend's guard army, and he gave them back to me after he got out of the hobby. So I've got 20 of them.
Wow.
And they're cool models. They are not the best sculpts, but they have a lot of character, and they have a neat aesthetic. The Casterkin came out in 2003, and these guys are really hard to find because they're fucking gorgeous.
Oh, I love these. They're super expensive on eBay. Getting a squad of these things.
Yeah, they did them in the made to order run a little while ago, and I hope they do that again. So these guys look like up armored Cadians, but they look very tactical. Their poses are all very military. Their poses are all very dynamic, without being ridiculous. There's some great artwork of them in the old Guard Codex, where there's these like two guardsmen standing next to each other, and one's the Casterkin. He's just festooned in armor with like these trophies and such.
God, I love these models.
Yeah, they were sculpted by Juan Diaz, who is one of the best sculptors GW ever had. And I think these are some of his best work.
They're thick, THICC.
CC,
because they have like thick armor and a ton of crap on them, like supplies and shit for them. They have beautifully done hell guns or hotshot las guns or whatever you want to call them. They have power packs. They have cool helmets. Their sergeant looks badass as fuck.
Love that model. I like his gas mask kind of just dangling off too. No, they are fantastic models.
And they have models for all 4 of the special weapons: grenade launchers, flamers, plasma guns, and melta guns. And their plasma gun model isn't fucking pointing.
Yes. So now we come on to the Tempestus Scions kit that came out in 2014. I have no idea who sculpted this because they don't really release that information anymore. But this kit, by and large, I like a lot. It's this really detailed Gothic models while still feeling very military. But the problem with the plasma gun is it's got one hand cradling the plasma gun and one hand pointing. And only having one option for a pose isn't a big deal if it's a neutral pose. So the flamer and the melt gun, the grenade launcher, are just held like you'd probably hold those weapons, pretty neutrally. While that plasma gun arm means every squad is going to have multiple dudes pointing in different directions. Or if you get creative, you can change it a little bit. So I have one where he's like slinging it under his arm and, it looks like he's just kind of running. But I'm not a fan of that bit.
I love it when you are playing a game with somebody and he plops down his like command squad of Scions with 4 plasma guns and it's just 4 dudes pointing. You're like, fuck that guy.
This kit's really, I like this kit a lot. I've bought a lot of this kit.
I will say this kit is fucking beautiful. Like the armor is awesome, like very gothic armor. The helmets are so fucking cool.
And the beret heads are cool too.
The only problem with the beret heads is that the helmets are so fucking cool.
Yeah, I didn't use any of the beret heads, so I'm waiting for something to use them all on. But it's cool because by having the beret heads, by having the gas mask, by having the little target lights, by having the power packs, they incorporate bits of every Stormtrooper kit before them. I think it's really cool to see that evolution go up because if you look at the 2nd edition Stormtroopers, they have in addition to the beret heads, they have these little shoulder mounted cameras on the backpacks that these guys have too. And the little decorations they have in their armor that makes it look a little bit more gothic and a little bit more knightly echoes across to the knights as well, like the Imperial Knights, the big robots. So it's a nice cohesive look and they outclass the Cadian kit by such a wide margin.
Yeah. I'm looking on eBay right now at Casterkin things. Mm-hmm. It's about $40 to $50 for 10.
Yeah, that's where the price has hovered for those guys for a long time. And 4 to 5 models.
Good luck finding plasma guns and melta guns.
Yeah, I mean they're. Oh yeah, good luck. But you'll have all the flamers and grenade launchers you could ever need. So 2014 also saw them getting a special ride.
I got you. Here's a one plasma gunner, or Casterkin plasma gunner, $40.
40?
40.
Jesus Christ. If you said 17, I'd be like, that's a lot, but I get it. It's dumb. That's dumb. Not worth it. So 2014 also saw, along with the Tempestus Scion kit, came out with the Torox Prime kit. And this is a divisive kit. But I think a lot of the backlash against these models when they came out was because of this weird baby blue paint scheme GW used. It was not a flattering scheme for either of the models. The Torox Prime is this like tracked snowcat, MCAT looking thing. But if you paint it green or a military color scheme, a little more neutral, a little more realistic, it looks a load better. And a lot of people have gone on to get the conversion kits that Victoria Lamb and God knows who else makes, where they're wheeled or half tracks, which help a lot too.
Yeah, the tracks on them are awful. God awful.
I don't think they're awful. See, I have a Winter Guard themed army, so when I did them, it's like, oh, they look like snowcats, the all-terrain vehicles you drive through heavy snow. So they make sense for my army, but I understand for a lot of people they wouldn't. That being said, in the fluff, those tracks are like electromagnetic, so those things can drive on the surface of spaceships and up mountains and shit.
No, I'm sorry, man. They just look so much fucking better with wheels.
Yeah, but with wheels, they can't drive up buildings like the Batmobile in Batman Forever.
Also, one of the things that kills me about these things is they're, for the Torox Prime, their secondary guns are right behind the access doors.
They are. Those are the real loyalty tester guns.
Which is a really dumb place to put them. I understand there's not a whole lot of surfaces on this thing for more guns, but that's a extraordinarily bad place for them.
Yeah, it is kind of a shame because like the missile racks look really cool. They look like kind of like a Katyusha rocket, and if you have the missile racks and like a turret, they look really good. But yeah, the guns in the back look kind of goofy. I'm not gonna lie. As for Militarum Tempestus, Tempestus Scions, Stormtroopers, whatever you want to call them, there's not a lot of reading out there for them at the moment. Again, you'll find them show up here and there in other books, other stories, and so on. But if you can track down the 6th edition Militarum Tempestus Codex, it's worth picking up if you can get it for cheap. The fluff in it is frankly kind of ridiculous. It seems like they're like, we want to make these guys elite, but we can't quite call them Space Marines. So it involves it has. One of the trials is you basically make a friend. You're basically paired off with another soldier when you join up, or another kid when you join up, because you're children. And your final test is to murder them.
Oh my God.
So you're instantly like training these people all the way up for years, and then you just instantly kill half of them. Or if you're trained to become a commissar, they'll be like, here's a pistol, kill Joe. Just go find Joe and just execute him.
Wow.
You have to do that. You'll be a commissar now. It's frankly ridiculous, and you've got all the psycho indoctrination and so on. But my favorite bit, my absolute favorite piece, is the hallucinarium.
What?
The hallucinarium is a malevolent murder maze where you are exposed to hallucinations, visions, strange sounds, live fire exercises, and Nickelodeon gut-style physical challenges during which you must still compete your orders.
The aggro crag.
While you're climbing the aggro crag and trying to build the golden monkey, if you don't get to the top, you'll probably get executed by the commissar. It's reading that, I'm just like, first of all, Hallucinarium is the name of my new stoner metal band.
Yeah, fuck yeah, it is.
But, oh god, it's absolutely ludicrous. It is worth picking up for some of that fluff. God. There's a bunch of like notable regiments in there, but for the most part, it's pretty much like these guys fought in a battle and won, except for one, which is like the 592nd Alphic Hydras, who are so obviously Alpha Legion spies. It's not even funny, but it's
called the Alphic Hydras.
The Alphic Hydras. And it's like, they've been known to be second into Ultramarines units that don't report in very often. It's like,
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
That's so funny.
There's some fun bits in there if you can find that codex. It's probably like, if you have a from your local game store, they probably have a discount rack and it's probably on there because no one's buying a codex for a sub-faction for an edition of the game that doesn't exist anymore.
All right. That's awesome. I'm really now a fan of the Stormtroopers within the Tempestus Scions, and man, I'd like to get some for my army.
The Start Collecting box is a super good value. You get, I think, the Torox Prime and I think maybe the Commissar for free. Like it's a good value. I bought a whole regiment basically. I have like 35 of them and 4 Toroxes and a Commissar that I got to field the old ground assault formation 6th and 7th edition.
That was very useful in the Apocalypse game of 2017.
It was. And unfortunately, like a month after I finished painting that army, they came with the Start Collecting box, and that would have saved me like 30% on it, but fucking whatever.
That stinks. All right, let's move on, man, to everybody's favorite segment, because you haven't talked enough this episode.
No, my voice is totally not going.
Fact or fan fiction. Campbell, do you have something for me this week? Something juicy?
I think it's gonna be an educational one.
It's a little past lunchtime, and I'm hungry.
It is.
So give it to me.
Well,
give me something hearty.
It was an ordinary day at the Warhammer High School. At the school, peoples from all over the galaxies came to learn how to fight and just have fun. Ring! Oh shit, the bell is ringing! Shasso Case freaked out, because if he didn't make it in, his attendance would be screwed.
Oh, fuck.
Dude, why are you rushing? Ethereal asked him as he turned on his jet boosters and started flying with the other Tau persons. Hi, Ethereal. It's just that if I don't get to school, the teachers will kill me, and that is not too keen. Oh, okay, I get it. A Thorolal conformed to his friend. Shasso Case was one of the most popular kids in the school, and everyone thought he was cool because he had a cool attitude, and he had cool weapons like the Palsma rifle and the missiles. He could beat most people in the fights, but he wasn't good at hitting people, so he couldn't do melee. Author's note, I was playing with the Tau, and for some reason the commander can't do close range. Can someone explain this to me? Finally, the two got to the high school, and it was hustling and bustling. It was like everyone was there. Oh, brother, Ethereal said with worry. This is busy. It's okay. Just stay with me, and we should be okay.
Is the
Tau commander reaffirmed.
Is that the voice you're doing for the Ethereal? Is it droopy?
Well,
Sorry, please continue.
It was like everyone was there. Everyone was in groups because that's how high school is. Like there are cliques, and Warhammer High School had those cliques.
By the way, it works. Is that how high school works?
Cliques is spelled like mouse clicks, not like social clicks. Hey, Shasso Case! A couple of robot suit guys, who were also Tau, said with friendliness.
Oh, Jesus.
Shasso Case would have said hi back, but then he saw someone and he couldn't stop looking. It was like that look you get when you see someone you have a crush on.
Eldar. It's a fucking
He was
Eldar.
actually looking at the Elder group, and there was an Eldar that tickled his love instincts. Tau, dear.
Love instincts.
Shasso Case whispered to himself. Things were finally starting to come together. I get it. You're in love with Tau, dear. Ethereal guessed with accuracy. Yeah, but don't tell anyone, okay? Shasso Case embarrassed. It's a deal, friend, Ethereal oathed. This is Principal Emperor. It is time to come into Warhammer High School. Would there be surprise? Love? Only you can find out. It is not a joke. Can you help me think of things for happened to Warhammer High School? Oh, by the way, I think that Shasso Case is a badass, so he's going to be wicked sweet. Please review, guys.
Oh, my God. Principal Emperor. Oh, fuck. Who's the superintendent?
Marnius Calgar?
Oh, no, it's who's in charge of the Emperor?
Super Nintendo, shall we?
Super Nintendo. Oh, my God.
Oh.
That was all worth it for the Principal Emperor line. That was so.
All right, so I color coded this in my notes so I can know the right voices to do, and of course, Emperor was in gold.
Yeah. Oh, well, that's fan fiction because it's stupid. But God,
yeah, that
was
is
a good
Dark
one.
Crusade High School by Supreme Dakari Lord Cervantes. By the way, in Chapter 2, Lord Cervantes is their teacher and his obvious self-insert character.
Ooh, nice. I like it. That was man, that was just like ticking off all the bullshit, terrible internet fan fiction checklist in my brain.
Yeah.
Wow, that's a good one. That was excellent, Campbell. Thank you very much for that.
I'm happy to provide.
All right, let's get the fuck out of here. You can contact us on email, 40k. Contact at 40kbadcast.com. There we go. Send us whatever the fuck you want, man. Dick pics, I don't care.
We've been getting tons of cool pictures, and I can't even list them all right now. We've been getting so many good pictures lately, and I'm so happy about it, including some from Matthew, who has his Imperial Fists who were born from the gene seed of Biff Tundrish, and they look fucking hysterical. They're all using like bad Catachan heads. It's fantastic.
Send us battle reports, like pictures of games you played. Like, I want to see all of it, man. I want to live vicariously through you nerds. You can get at us on Twitter. I'm at DB_sleazy, aka ya boy DZ on Twitter. Campbell is at brother SRM, and you're still Camporg McLightsaber.
I am. That's why I didn't go with a straight up Christmassy name, so I don't have to think of a new name too fast.
All right, I like it. We're on Twitter all the time. Whenever I have like 2 minutes of not actively doing something, guess what I'm doing? Looking at my fucking phone. So get at me.
Yeah, you can follow me to read jokes about ghost boners, because that's what I was tweeting about this morning.
Campbell, you also have a YouTube show. Well, at this point, you may have had a YouTube show.
Yeah, dearly departed.
Are you done with it?
I don't know yet. It's a matter of time, health, and other factors. But yeah, I do have a nice backlog of videos at youtube.com/KMHammerShow. Got some tutorials, game reviews, notes in the state of the game, stuff like that. So check those out. I still think they're very good videos, even if I'm not working on them right this moment. And I also have a Tumblr where I post pictures of my painted models, which is cam2d.tumblr.com.
All right, man. Do you have an inspirational quote that'll send us on our way?
Death is not failure, for even death can bring glory. Fear is not failure, for fear can be conquered. The only known failure is to ignore orders, for even a slight hesitation following them brings an ignoble end.
You heard it here first. I'm Dan Boyd. That's Campbell McLaughlin. We're the 40k Badcast, and hey, you can too. We'll see you next time.